You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on BQN and the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm your host, Amy, and with me today are Mark and Kelvin. Hello, Mark. How's it going today?
Hi, Amy. Yeah, nice to be here. Nice to see you guys. I'm excited to talk about this episode. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Listeners will notice Christos is absent this week. He got caught in some bad weather, so it's going to take him a little bit. But hopefully we can get him back here next week.
Yes. And Kelvin, hello. How are you doing this fine day?
Hello, my lovely. I'm very, very well, thank you. I'm equally as excited to talk about this episode because it's a lot of fun.
It is. Well, listeners, we did have a wonderful roundtable discussion with our patrons and some hosts, and hopefully you can find that on the Hive Mind. And we invite you to join, and you can do that. It's the second Saturday of every month, so please go check that out. Also, a little bit of news. Yesterday, I guess I should give a date. That would be Saturday. What was that? The 14th. There was
right.
Trek Talks 2. And you can go see that on YouTube. And I would highly recommend that. I was able to catch a couple hours of it. And it was this online charity event for the Hollywood Food Coalition that who's Enterprise Doctor? John Billingsley. Oh my gosh, yeah. John Billingsley really spearheads it all and got all these Trek people to come and talk. And it was this huge online marathon. It was pretty cool. And they were very successful in raising over $100,000 for the Food Coalition to help feed people in Hollywood, Southern California area. So I would highly recommend that. I learned some things that I did not know. Very, very interesting. So
I'll go and take a listen. Excellent. And a great cause as well.
Yeah, very much so.
Well, now it's time for All Good World.
From Las Vegas to Boston, USA to Canada and South America, from the United Kingdom to South Africa, from Russia to Australia, the South Pacific, and beyond. This is All Good World.
Each episode, we highlight a different location around the globe where this podcast has reached. Today's episode, we'd like to give a special shout out to our friends down in Ecuador. Fun fact, the Republic of Ecuador is a country in northwestern South America, bordered by Colombia on the north, Peru on the east and south, and the Pacific Ocean just to the west. Ecuador includes also the Galapagos Islands with all those fun turtles over in the Pacific. And it's about 1,000 kilometers, 621 miles west of the mainland. The country's capital city looks like, how would I mispronounce this? Quito? Quito. Woo, there we go. Listeners, I always butcher words at least once a day. Well, hello to our Ecuadorian listeners, and I'm so excited that we have some listeners down there in Ecuador. What a gorgeous country, and you guys are taking time out of your lovely beach days to check out our podcast, so thank you.
That is pretty darn awesome. I would have never guessed we had listeners in Ecuador. It's awesome.
How lovely to have a beach day as well as I sit here in a very wet and rainy Manchester in England. So, good for them.
Yeah, same here in Boston, wet and rainy. Yeah.
Same here in Las Vegas. Yesterday felt like Manchester. Thank you very much. Cloudy, dark, and then the rain came down. I was like, what is this wet stuff coming out of the sky?
Well, I bet it's sunny and nice in Ecuador. And another fun fact, guys, the name Ecuador, originally, like the word in Spanish, I guess, just means equator.
Oh,
So
Oh, that makes sense.
yes,
fun
it
fact.
does.
I can't hear about Ecuador without thinking of a 90s dance trance song that was in the charts here in the UK
Oh,
by an artist called Sash, and it was just called Ecuador, and it was a big hit. I think it was #1 in the charts. So yeah,
oh, I gotta
Wow.
listen.
I'm having a flashback to being in nightclubs in the 90s.
Oh my gosh.
So cool.
Right. Shall we take a look at today's episode then?
Yeah, what are we
absolutely.
talking about?
So this week we are continuing with part 2 of our Get Off My Ship series, and we're going to focus on Star Trek Enterprise and the season 1 episode Acquisition. For viewers, listeners, who will remember, our previous episode focused on Voyager Message in a Bottle.
Now,
So,
can you just
for those
quickly
of you...
refresh my memory? What was Message in a Bottle again?
Message in a Bottle is when, we sent the Doctor through that data stream, through that micro wormhole into the Alpha Quadrant. And when he got there, he was on this prototype starship that had been taken over, was it by the Romulans?
It was.
Yeah, it was by the Romulans. And then the Doctor, and then the Doctor 2.0, who was played by, what's his name? Andy Dick. Yes. Together, they had worked together to get the Romulans off their ship.
Huh, I think I was not on that episode.
Oh,
Okay,
you need
that's
to
why I
rewatch
don't
it.
remember it. Okay,
It was a good one.
cool. All right,
And
sorry.
I wasn't. It was before my time.
Oh, yeah.
So while we're talking episode recaps, Acquisition, for those of you who need to go and do a rewatch or maybe inspired for a rewatch after this episode, this was the season 1 episode that infamously showed the Ferengi who took over Enterprise while the crew were all put to sleep and tried to raid the ship of all of its valuables. And the only person who was awake or immune from the knockout gas, because he was in the decon chamber, was Trip. So it was Trip running around the ship in his knickers and vest, trying to foil the Ferengi.
Oh my gosh, Kelvin, I am so glad that you are on All Good Things just so I could hear running around in his knickers and vest.
Knickers.
I should say pants, I suppose, if I've got an American audience. But for listeners in Ecuador, they may say knickers.
Yeah.
Well, guys, how did the Ferengi take over the ship? This is interesting because we kind of had a cold open there, where a lot of the action took place before even the camera turned on. So let's discuss, sort of how this happened.
Yeah, what's going on in your head canon?
I would have put money on that there was a reference in the dialogue with Captain Archer about taking on board an artifact that kind of released something that put them to sleep. Now, it was a couple of weeks ago when Mark first told us we were doing this episode as a topic that I did my rewatch, so it's not fresh in the memory. But I don't, from having a quick look through literature, I'm not sure that was actually said. I think I may have headcanoned it. So yeah, my headcanon is they're tricked into bringing something on board that they've discovered that the Ferengi have planted that has set off some kind of gas that has put the crew to sleep. And obviously with Trip being in the decon chamber, which is a kind of protected environment, he was, not affected.
So yeah, this is interesting. Like, we don't, like, I saw that in the notes as well for the episode when I was doing research. Like, this is the explanation that was officially given, but I don't remember ever seeing the device, which would have been helpful for the audience. And also, why was Trip in the decon chamber if they're just... I mean, I guess if he was on the planet and he brought back the artifact, but did nobody else go with him?
Yeah, it definitely did reference why Trip was in decon, but I can't remember what it is now.
Because
I
he
don't
had
think
just come back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I can't imagine that it would be one device. Like, how many floors or levels is the ship? And one device spreading gas? No, I don't see that's going to happen.
Yeah, you would almost expect it's something to be more like a computer hack to trigger the environmental systems to flood all, I think about 7 decks, I think, on Enterprise with like anestazine or something that were more familiar with hearing in kind of TNG onwards. So yeah, I agree. If it was a device, it might have affected everyone in the cargo bay or the bridge, wherever they brought the device onto. But yeah, for it to kind of systemically get to all parts of the ship, that might be a bit of a plot hole.
Yeah, because when I first saw it, in my mind, I was like, oh, well, the Ferengi just played, oh, I'm wounded. Enterprise came in and was like, oh, do you need help? And then that's when they were taken over. That's what I imagined before any of knowing all of this.
It was definitely environmental, because when the Ferengis originally boarded the ship, they had gas masks on. So they had to purge whatever it was that they'd used before they could demask and start talking. So yeah.
And I guess it's a pretty lucky guess that this gas would knock out everyone.
Everybody?
Because they don't know what aliens are on any ship.
They don't know anything about the human physiology either.
Or Denobulin or Vulcan or anyone else that's on there. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm surprised that T'Pol didn't know about them. And be like, hey guys, this is the Ferengi. That surprises me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, now I'm upset about that.
So that is one of my issues with this episode. And it is, I think in some of the notes, Brannon Braga says it was a pretty desperate attempt in season 1 to kind of plant something familiar to bring people across. And you know, other series have done that too. They've had guest stars from previous incarnations like McCoy in Encounter at Farpoint, etc. So I don't think it's desperate. I just think it could have been something else. So when they did this pretty much carbon copy with the Borg, and they didn't use the word Borg for obvious reasons of continuity, that to me was fine, because the Borg are in the Delta Quadrant, they're out of the way, and these are remnants from First Contact. So it worked in Regeneration really well. But you can't really just say nobody knows the Ferengi when they are an Alpha Quadrant species, and Ferenginar is just around the corner from Bajor and Cardassia. So either we've not been that far yet, which is fair enough, but the Vulcans would have.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We definitely haven't, because even like at the time of TNG and Deep Space Nine, it's called Deep Space Nine, and it's not called, hey, we're number 9 of space stations. You know?
But we're definitely deep.
We're definitely deep in it. We're 9 deep. Sorry, I misspoke.
Yeah, I suppose Common Land 9 doesn't really have the same ring to it, does it? Known Space 9.
You mean Terok Nor?
Absolutely.
So it's interesting you brought up the Borg. And yeah, that was sort of this retcon. And so we get the Ferengi, and that's never used. You know, they're just these aliens. But do you think that they were written this as a stupid villain because of how TNG Ferengi was received. They were supposed to be the big villains for TNG, and then they just ended up being a joke. Do you think they wrote it specifically to sort of fall into that?
What do we all think about the Ferengi as villains, like in Star Trek in general? Because we saw them as villains in TNG, but not really as in Deep Space Nine or Voyager. I think the only other time was this time in Enterprise.
The Ferengi as villains, it's very well known that it just didn't work in TNG, so they made them into these comedy stooges almost. I'm thinking of episodes like The Price, where they're more of an annoyance or an antagonist at best, but villain. No, and it was only really the individual Ferengis that ever came across as true villains, like Damon Bok. Or the, again, taking over the ship, Damon Lorin, who took over the ship in Rascals. So, yeah, the actual Ferengi as the Ferengi Alliance, not really a villainous race, just kind of individuals. So, and I don't think there was any efforts with Enterprise this episode to try and create Ferengis as villains. They were using the established Ferengi that we know from Deep Space Nine onwards as, that is the character. And there is a lot of, this is played for comedy, let's face it.
Well, there was some of that. If you go back to Rascals, I like that you guys brought up Rascals, because again, we had the Ferengi taking over a ship, taking over the Enterprise, but they're sort of bumbling when they do it. They're able to take it over, but not able to hold it because they're kind of buffoons. But that also is another episode where there are moments in it. I want my dad now. It's like, it's funny because it's Picard and he's acting like a kid. But there's moments in this episode as well where it's like, it's just funny. It's funny because they're buffoons.
So I want to ask, with the Ferengi being not this Cardassian strategic, Romulan, like we're used to those villains. And so then we get the Ferengi, and does it make our crew, does it make us look stupid for falling for it each and every time? Like, I feel like it's a fine line that it's like, yeah, it can be fun and funny, but then we just look ridiculous for falling for it each and every time.
Well, I don't know. They're cunning. I mean, I don't want to get political here, but I mean, Trump got elected in the United States, and he's not the brightest bulb. It's just, he's strategic and cunning in a way and able to manipulate people. I don't know. So Trump is the Ferengi of Earth.
Trump does have the same Ferengi skin pigmentation as well. He is quite orange to look at.
And
he's all about the
big
profit.
Ears.
Profit.
Yeah.
And he's always about getting umox.
And he likes his fascination with gold.
Exactly.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, this is totally taking place.
Trump is a Ferengi in disguise. We
Yes.
figured it out.
You know what?
Selfish and capitalistic and materialistic.
Even the name Trump, it does sound like a Ferengi.
Yes.
Brunt.
Yeah.
Trump.
Trump, FCA.
Oh, Lord. We're going to get so much flack from all of our Republican listeners for this. I'm sorry to both of you.
Both of the Republican listeners.
Yeah. Oh, Lord. Enterprise did a really good job, I think, with taking alien species that were established, I guess, with TOS and with TNG and others, and really developing them a little bit further. I think they did that well. I know who was the makeup designer back then? That was still
Michael Westmore.
Michael Westmore, whose family has been doing makeup and arts since the dawn of Hollywood. So, living legend. And this was sort of his, I guess, swan song with the Trek universe, because he had done all of the previous Trek essentially, except for the original series, and here's like his, on the way out, he's making all these great memorable aliens, and I do think I see an improvement, especially from TNG Ferengi to the Ferengi you see in Deep Space Nine to even the Ferengi you see in Enterprise, and I say the same about the Klingons as well. The Klingons, I think, looked better in Enterprise than they did at any other point. I don't know. I'll fight you on it.
I agree with you there, Matt. So if we're looking purely at the aesthetic and the makeup here, you'll recall that Star Trek Discovery got quite a lot of hate, shall we call it, for the makeup jobs on the Orions. And even on the Tellarite and Andorians, and a lot of people were saying it seems like it stepped back in quality when you compare to Andorians, Orions on Enterprise, which were considered amazing. And I'd certainly agree, certainly with the Orions. So yeah, how can something that is 20 years later, with all of the advancements in prosthetics, makeup, and even just the money that's available, compare it to something from 2001 and it doesn't look half as good?
Yeah. The great thing that you mentioned, the was it the Tellarites, and something that I loved about the Tellarites that they did in Enterprise is that they went back to TOS and they essentially did what TOS did. They pretty much created the TOS Tellarite version, but uplifted it, elevated it, made it better. And it was still sort of pig looking, but they didn't turn it full like warthog, which I guess they went that route with the tusks and stuff with the newer iterations. So I don't know. Given the two, if I had to pick between the Enterprise Tellarites and the new Tellarites that they're doing, you can't beat the Enterprise Tellarites. They're really good.
Yeah.
One thing is you're talking about the Ferengi and sort of the progression, and I think you're right. It just goes to Michael Westmore's credit and what a genius he was. But one thing I liked with the Ferengi is it seems like this Enterprise is the go-between, this intermediary step between the Last Outpost season 1 TNG to what we see in Deep Space Nine. And why I say that, because when we saw them in the Last Outpost, think of what they were wearing. These stupid fur things and da-da-da. And then in Deep Space Nine, I feel like they've really got their look, the coloring, their clothes seems very normal for Ferengi. And then we get the Enterprise, and I think it's a really good middle stepping stone between those two, because their outfits, it was rough clothing, very similar to the fur, but not as polished as what we see in Deep Space Nine. Their coloring and makeup wasn't as fine-tuned as what we saw. It was a little rougher, like that Last Outpost. So I think that this Enterprise, even though it comes way before TNG chronologically, and even though it's the last produced, I feel like it's a good middle stone for the Ferengi.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
What we see a lot, specifically in TNG, is the Ferengi Alliance. So you see, if military is not too strong a word, the military side, or the spacefaring on the Decorator class ships, that's the Ferengi. And yes, you see them at the furs with the animal print in season 1. But then season 2 onwards, they had the kind of a dark, dull brown and black with the little horseshoe on the chest. And that stayed throughout TNG. But on DS9, we didn't really deal with the Ferengi as, an organization. We dealt with Ferengi individuals like Quark and his family, even Brunt. And the Ferengi kind of collective was more the financial aspect, like the Ferengi Commerce Authority, or the Grand Nagus and Ferenginar itself. So I think comparing and contrasting TNG and DS9 Ferengi is interesting, but we're looking at more civilian Ferengis on DS9 and militaristic Ferengi on the original, whereas these Ferengi are Ferengi pirates. They're just referred to as pirates. So are they part of the Ferengi Alliance? Does the Ferengi Alliance exist in this time frame?
Yeah, interesting.
Who knows? I would compare these Ferengi, controversially, with the Ferengi on Voyager, on the episode where they try to steal Seven of Nine through the geodesic fold. Barclay episode, Inside Man, in season 7. And they are rogue Ferengi who are just out for profit, and they're a little bit bumbling. And, what are you going to do with all that money? Oh, lobe enlargements. So that's the connection I get with the Enterprise episode we're talking about here and now. I connect it more with Voyager Inside Man.
Well, I want to tease for the listeners a little bit, because I can, that in a couple of weeks, we are going to be starting a series that I dreamed up, last summer, and we're finally going to get to it. And that's going to be the evolution of species within Trek. And so what we'll be able to do is be able to go back to the first time we see them in Star Trek versus how these species have developed over time. And I want to start that off with the Andorians, just because to me, they're a species that, again, I think, like we were saying with the Tellarites, really hit their peak with Enterprise, and then they're not as cool now. But we can discuss that, and there's different opinions. You know what I mean?
Do I have to turn up dressed as Charles Darwin for these series, Mark, if we're talking about evolution of the species?
What did he wear?
A beard.
Well, you'll have that.
Hey, so I wanted to ask your opinion. Like, we are used to seeing like the crew and like this, everyone doing stuff. This was definitely Archer to Paul trip. No one else really did much of noteworthy. How do you feel about episodes when that happens, Kelvin?
I think it's very telling that this is a season 1 episode, because other Trek have done this before, where they don't really have a full understanding of the full workings of the collective characters yet. So they put them in an environment where they're either isolated. Ones that spring to mind, I know it's season 2, but only just, DS9 invasive procedures. There's an ion storm, so we've had to evacuate everyone off Deep Space Nine and just leave the main characters. That's quite handy. I think Next Gen have done that a couple of times too. So I see it as a positive, because we get to focus on what is widely considered as, the 3 top characters on Enterprise. But, I do feel sorry. It's well regarded that Enterprise famously didn't really know what to do with its supporting characters. I think there's even a line in an episode of Enterprise, the one that Brent Spiner's in, the Augment episodes, where Malcolm Reed introduces himself and he says, "Oh, I don't know your character. You need to work on your PR," which is obviously an in-joke. So it is a shame that we don't get the other characters. However, I am such a huge fan of anything where it's Trip and T'Pol centric. And I do love Scott Bakula as well as Captain Archer. So I'm all for it. But yeah, it strikes me as very early series, kind of, we don't know what we're doing yet, finding its feet.
Oh, so this is interesting. I didn't know that you're a Trip and T'Pol, like those are your go-to characters on the show.
Love. I think Jolene Blaylock is the best thing about Enterprise. Clearly it's a strong woman that all the gays love. Hey,
well, what did you think in this episode particularly? I was kind of, I guess, a little confused and thought it might have been a stretch when I saw her being like the vixen to that one Ferengi. She's like, "Oh, I've been used as a slave, and will you rescue me?" And whatever she was able to, I guess, emote quite a bit more than I would expect the average Vulcan to. And that's, I don't know. So it kind of took me out a little bit. and I just couldn't really see Spock doing that. But then I was like, I don't know, maybe modern Spock, maybe emo Spock.
I bought it. I think it's a tactic. I think it's fallen flat because they say they don't know the Ferengi. So if Vulcans knew Ferengi, she would know that they're all terrible. Their attitudes towards women are not progressive. Let's face it.
You know what? I would say
like that she could get what she wants. So, but she doesn't. So it is taking a chance and a risk, but it works.
I would go a step further and say that the Ferengi are all a bunch of buttheads.
Well, quite literally, if you look at the makeup. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't taken out of the episode by T'Pol's overtly submissive, sexual, save me. I just saw it purely as a tactic. The fact that she gets close to them, starts giving him umox, and then follows it up by a nerve pinch, I think was amazing. So yeah, all credit to T'Pol.
Yeah, it definitely was a tactic. But again, it doesn't make sense if she wouldn't know the Ferengi and that would work. But I don't know. I guess she could have like observed them and it's like, oh, these guys aren't the smartest, and then go for the low-hanging fruit of I can seduce them because I'm a woman, and that works on everybody that's, not intelligent. So
yeah,
maybe so then she wouldn't have needed any previous knowledge.
I think that's a good call, Amy. Tragic to say, but it's in most cultures. Women can use their, do they call it feminine wiles to get what they want around men. So yeah, and I'm sure T'Pol probably just said, "Hey, I'm a female character in the Berman era of Star Trek. I'll just behave submissively around all the men as a sexual object, and that'll work as a treat." So yeah.
Yes. Yep. Oh, you're so right. And I wish you weren't.
Accurate.
Yeah, what would Michael Burnham have done?
Oh, she would have kicked his ass. Oh, Lord. Well, speaking of the crew here, we had talked about the three main crew members that have, a lot of work to do in this episode, where everybody else is sleeping. How did they get the ship back?
I love this tactic, and why I think it's good. And Kelvin, to your point, like it's a good first season because we get to see the nonverbal and the, basic understanding with just a look between the characters, and they're, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to trick them, and I'm going to take them to the vault, and you distract them here. And like they're working together in concert. I really, really enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Archer and Trip have known each other for years. So even though this is only season 1, there is a long-standing relationship there, much like you have with Janeway and Tuvok. I think it's great that, they've had 3/4 of a season with T'Pol, so they can give her a knowing look, and that shows the great communication that the three of those characters have got together. So yeah, I think it's good, and they allowed this storyline allowed Scott Bakula and specifically Archer as a character to play the kind of the comedy role, which is not something you get a lot with Archer. He was always so serious, especially from kind of season 3 onwards. So it's a nice appearance.
I loved how they, searched and was looking for the vault. And then the one guy's, well, I'm looking at the diagram. Well, that's not going to tell us. And he's like, well, if the captain's quarters and that's where you keep it, like it played into sort of this materialistic of this Ferengi, but then yet still trying to be cunning. So that's why it's weird when they fall for it, but then don't fall for it. I don't know. I still am not sure on if the Ferengi, like what level of smart are they? I don't know. It's back and forth for me.
I think did they fall for it? Did they not? It was, you've got the greed of the Ferengi, but also they are selfish. So you've got the infighting amongst the Ferengi themselves as a group, and that is what Archer preyed upon to start planting the seed about who was in charge. And it's very similar to what Strange New Worlds just did in the Serene Squall episode, where I forget the little code that Pike and Una say that they're going to do, and that's the kind of the tactical name, but basically going to provoke a mutiny and get them all fighting amongst themselves.
Oh, I agree with you. The Serene Squall, that was something I loved. Obviously, every episode of Strange New Worlds, it's my new favorite Trek, and they only had one season. But that episode, that is a weak point for me of just how easily deceived the crew of that ship are and so easily manipulated. But, it is a trope that they do in Star Trek, where they have these marauders, these pirates that are just sort of bumbling. They did it here with the Ferengi. They did it in that episode. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's my point and they say it in this episode where Archer's talking to the guy and is like, you guys are so worried about materialistic. We don't have any of that stuff here. And then the Ferengi is like, well, then your system didn't work well enough. And I'm just like, really? So all of you guys are going to go into a vault because of your greed, and your civilization and species has been able to go on past what ours did? I don't know about that.
Well, they're a step up from the Packlets.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, can we move on to some assimilation or regeneration?
Absolutely.
So, listeners, this segment, assimilation is what we like because we want to assimilate it, and regeneration, we're going to send it back. We don't like it. Mark, tell us something.
Well, I have an assimilation for the guest stars. We have the return of Clint Howard, who was he's been in pretty much, I think, all of Trek except for, I don't think he was in TNG, but he's been in everything else. So it was great to have him back. Ethan Phillips, obviously, it was lovely having him back. And then Jeffrey Combs, who wasn't in Enterprise. He was somebody other than Shran. So this was his only, I think, non-Shran appearance on Enterprise.
Okay, can we just, for me, and if there's listeners out there who don't remember, Jeffrey Combs, was he the main guy? The main Ferengi?
He was the dumbest one in this episode, which is crazy because
the one that was with Archer, the
Yes.
one that was doing the manual labor, that was Jeffrey Combs?
Yes.
Okay, so which one was Ethan Phillips? I couldn't.
He was the captain.
Yeah.
He was the main one.
Yeah.
And then Clint Howard, I didn't even know he was in this.
He was the one in the red uniform who was almost like, I would say, the security. He was like the brutal one.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they had taken his scanners, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Clint Howard, no matter how much makeup you put on that guy, you can still look at him in the face and you're like, oh, there's Clint Howard. Yeah. But I think it was interesting seeing Jeffrey Combs as a different Ferengi besides Brunt, because we're used to Brunt being the really super intelligent Ferengi, very cunning Ferengi. And then here he is playing a different Ferengi, and he does a very good job playing a very different type of Ferengi here. You can believe it's a totally different character.
I like the Ferengi language that we hear. We spoke a lot in last week's episode about the universal translator. And so we start the episode clearly. Our universal translator doesn't know the Ferengi language, so it takes a while for it to come. But those kind of dropping of the words that we as fans know, such as umox, so I found that really rewarding, that it's one of those nods that the fans know more about what's going on than obviously the crew, but even the casual viewer as well. Think about someone who may have started watching Star Trek with Enterprise, not having a clue who the Ferengi were either. So when this Ferengi language is playing out, it's just gibberish. but to us as fans, we recognize certain words. So I thought that was really clever. I think it said somewhere as well in some of the notes that even though there was great lengths taken to not use the word Ferengi, if you were to put subtitles on screen, it actually just says Ferengi dialogue. So it says the F word on screen.
Oh, that is true. I really liked this part of it too. And I was like, where's my subtitles? Because I was thinking Discovery, when how many episodes started with the Klingon language, but we could read what they were saying, even though we couldn't hear it. So and then it got me thinking, I was like, oh yeah. And then they did it in Beyond. And then I was thinking, is this the first time that like an extended amount of time that we hear an alien language? Is this the first time? Because like I said, Discovery and Beyond, that is after Enterprise. So
Well, clearly we've got the episodes that are all about not understanding the alien language, like Darmok. So you could argue that a lot of that episode was nonsensical, and that was working out what we were going to say. But I think there's been several episodes where the universal translator hasn't worked.
And we hear language for that period.
So
Okay.
the Deep Space Nine episode Sanctuary, where the Skrians are fleeing the Dominion and they come to Deep Space Nine and they want to all, be relocated to Bajor, and they have a very fierce immigration policy and basically say no, go back. But all of that episode, there was a huge, I think most of Act 1 was the universal translator couldn't work on their language. So yeah, there's been a few.
Oh, I was gonna say I can't have an assimilation or a generation without bringing up the assimilation of Porthos. They were impressed by Porthos's ears. At first they were like, well, he's probably a lower life form. They're like, no, but look at his ears. He's probably a higher life form because he's got the long ears. And it was great seeing Porthos, and I love beagles. Shocker.
Porthos had a bigger role in this episode than the others. Hoshi, we didn't even see Travis or Malcolm. Yeah. I was watching, and then all of a sudden I hear "Get off my ship," and I'm like, that's what I'm watching. So that was pretty cool. Good job, Mark.
Yeah, I didn't even realize when I came up with the title for the Get Off My Ship series that there was an episode where someone actually says "Get off my ship," and I was like, yes! Oh, that was great.
So I thought that's why you chose the series. That's what you meant to say, Mark. Yes, you had planned it all along.
Okay, sure.
Yes.
I think we call that in-universe validation.
Yes.
What else have we got? We've got obviously the focus on ears. There's lots of nice little nods as Trip's having a bit of a tussle with a Ferengi and he bites their ears. That's a nice little joke because you would assume that that's a particularly sensitive part of a Ferengi. So that made me laugh.
Yeah, that was so funny when he goes and he bites his ear. I was like, oh, I love that. But, for a Ferengi, that's like biting his balls.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a regeneration. I'm sorry. It's T'Pol performing the Umox and just that cringiness of it all. And I really do feel it's inappropriate to be showing that on TV. Like, if they get that much of a physical response from that.
Well, okay. So if we're going to do some regenerations, why did it take Trip so long to find his clothes? And what happened to his own clothes? Like, shouldn't they have been right outside the chamber, the decon chamber? Like, you'd think they'd be on a chair right there or something.
That's what I was thinking.
Well, two things here. Perhaps his uniform was soiled in the away mission, so we put it straight into the wash or the recycler or whatever we do with dirty uniforms in Star Trek. So that could explain its absence. But Mark, why is this a regeneration? This should be an assimilation all day long. Any opportunity to see Connor running around in his knickers and vest is what the public wants. I mean, it's only a regeneration because he wasn't oiled up in the decon gel. Surely.
Wow.
He couldn't get the decon gel. They have to put it on each other, but he was there by himself. Again, a regeneration. Why was he in there alone? Shouldn't have there been two people?
Paul?
Maybe. Yeah.
Mayweather, maybe? I don't know. They could have rubbed it on each other.
Oh, lovely.
Anyway. I do have an assimilation, though, that I will tack onto that. That when the Ferengi are going around the ship and they are just looting it, they have those giant sacks, and it just reminded me of The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. And they go over to like the food storage things, and they find like, pies and whatnot, and they just smell it, and then they toss it in there too. I mean, that was just like The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, which is funny because if you remember from Galaxy Class a few weeks back, we had that great episode where the Ferengi was essentially the Grinch.
Yes.
And it was so much fun.
I was really affected by when they were throwing the food into the bag, thinking, oh no, you're going to squash it all. Put it in some Tupperware boxes.
You'd think they'd have the sense for that, but I guess not.
I was really concerned when they were, packing up Porthos and then putting him in the box and then shutting the lid. I'm like, oh my gosh, Mark is not going to be happy about that.
No, poor guy. At least it was like a big enough box where he could breathe in there for a little while before suffocating. But poor guy, probably only had like an hour of oxygen in there.
Well, good thing they found him.
Mm-hmm.
That was the real jeopardy of the episode. How long can the dog survive in the box?
Right.
That was our high stakes.
They were not in any danger, really, with the Ferengi. It was just a suffocated dog.
Yeah. I'll assimilate this. I noticed immediately when you see them boarding the ship that the Ferengi had their menacing Ferengi whips attached to their hips. And I was like, oh, they got the whips.
Yeah, that's a real assimilation, and that was clearly done on purpose as a callback to the Last Outpost Ferengi. And also as well, it was a very cool effect when it was used. It was really of its time. It was modern. When you look back and watch the Last Outpost now, the whips are they're like really girthy, for want of a better word. They don't. I know. And even the visual effect of, the energy discharge doesn't look that good. But this was when Ethan Phillips, said, why are you awake? And then whipped Trip. It was a great visual effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very well done here. Agreed. Well, should we get to some trivia?
Yeah, so we've mentioned about the plethora of established guest stars in this episode, but I think it's a great opportunity to reference again about how you've got somebody who's been in every other established Star Trek series in this episode. So if that was super intentional to bring the viewers in, it's great. So you've got the original series represented with Clint, who was in the Corbinite Maneuver, which was one of the very first episodes. Clearly, you've then got TNG with Ethan Phillips, who was in TNG, again as a Ferengi in Menage a Trois. Deep Space Nine, clearly with Jeffrey Combs, and Voyager, again, Ethan Phillips and Jeffrey Combs, who was in Voyager 2. So it just really brings everybody into Enterprise. And what a stellar cast. There's some names there that they've managed to get hold of. So, yeah, well done to the casting director.
Wow, I didn't even think about it as bringing in all the other series with those actors. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I found interesting this bit of trivia that Trip here is seen in his blue undies. So that would be the science division. And he was also in his regular, he's in Operations Red. And in season 3 Twilight, he's in Command Goal. So that makes him the only star to have been seen in all 3 division uniforms.
It's a great bit of trivia. That, however, I must correct you slightly there, Amy. It's not the blue knickers and vest. It's when he randomly eventually finds a uniform. It's just a random crewman's uniform, and it's too small for him. But it happens to be a science division.
Mhm.
So it's the real Enterprise jumpsuit. Everybody wears the blue knickers and vest, regardless of what division you're in on Enterprise. There is no gold or red underwear.
No
As
red
I know,
knickers.
no red knickers. It's not a good look. I love the rules of acquisition. It's one of my many things that I like to memorize and quote, just to test myself if I can remember which one's which. And we get some great call outs and references to established rules of acquisition that we know in Deep Space Nine, but also the kind of, again, retro continuity of this is an earlier time period, so there may not be as many rules of acquisition. So we learn here that there's only 173 by this point in 2151, I think. And then clearly in Deep Space Nine, it's well documented that there are 285 rules of acquisition. So clearly some more were invented. A little bit of trivia or a question for you to, does anyone know what the 286th rule of acquisition was, which was an unofficial rule that was made on Deep Space Nine?
I don't know.
No.
Amy, drawing a blank?
There's
The 286th rule of acquisition is when Morn leaves, it's all over.
Aww.
As a reference to Morn always being sat at the bar.
So, can you explain a little of these rules of acquisition? This is the Bible, as you will. So they're adding new scripture. Is that?
Absolutely that.
Okay.
So this is the almost the religion of the Ferengi is these rules in which to kind of conduct all of your business affairs. Rule of acquisition number 1: once you have the money, you never give it back. And it's all of those kind of ways to live your life or ways not to. And I'm surprised you've never heard this before, Amy, but the rules of acquisition were were originally kind of envisaged as if you remember in TNG's The Game with Robin Leffler, you had Leffler's laws.
Yes.
And she kept quoting them to Wesley. The rules of acquisition were kind of a follow-up idea based on Robin Leffler's laws. Life isn't always fair, those ones. So, yeah, another bit of trivia here with the rules of acquisition, and you can choose to believe here whether this was a continuity error or whether it was in-universe evolution. So rule of acquisition number 6 in Deep Space Nine was never allow family to stand in the way of opportunity. Whereas here is referenced as never allow family to stand in the way of profit. So did they get it wrong, or did the Ferengi decide to change that particular rule?
I think that they changed it or modified it throughout the years.
Yeah, because I think profit is more limiting than just an opportunity. So I think that would make sense to widen that rule.
And all of the rules of acquisition can be found in Trump's book, The Art of the Deal, which you can find at most used bookstores and garage sales in the United States.
That's funny. Well, you guys, tell me your final thoughts on this Enterprise acquisition. Mark? I'm
so glad you guys came with me on this journey today. This is one of my go-to favorite Enterprise episodes. I know it's an indulgence. I know, according to canon, we shouldn't have met them. And yes, the producers were just trying to get more viewers. So let's bring the Ferengi, let's bring all these, stars that we know from, past shows and stuff. Fine. It's an indulgence, whatever. It's a fun indulgence. I love episodes that don't take themselves too seriously. There's not some higher message here. It's just a fun Star Trek episode, and sue me for enjoying that. Sorry.
Yeah, I had some preconceptions about a rewatch on this episode because of that known stigma that it has as a very obvious ploy to bring viewers in. But you know what? It is a bit of fun, and I did really enjoy it, and it has got some laughing moments, and yeah, it's what I would call a romp of an episode, and we all know which direction Enterprise takes when you get into the Xindi arc and even season 4 with all of the dire consequences. Here, it's just a load of Ferengi just trying to steal a load of money and things. It's just retaking the ship. So it's very low stakes, but high fun. So I'm glad you suggested it, Mark. It has afforded me to reflect on my opinion of the episode, and I actually enjoyed it. I like this episode now.
Yay.
Yeah, it definitely is, Kelvin, as you say, a fun romp. Yeah, nothing too high stakes. I mean, the highest stakes was Porthos in the box, and he was rescued. So that was good. We can all breathe deeper now. And yeah, I like revisiting the Ferengi, even though we don't know about them. And it's sort of fun with that touch and go between TNG. I think, what I totally forgot to say this in my assimilation. The whole T'Pol with no sense of humor and complaining all the time. And then when Archer's locked up and she's holding the key, oh my gosh, if she did not deliver that perfectly and without cracking a smile, like, you really said this about me? Yeah, that is high comedy right there. And we get to see that with T'Pol. So yeah, that's
kudos to Jolene for this episode. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Mark, what are we talking about next week?
Oh my goodness, we're going to be talking about another one of my favorite episodes. We're going to continue with the Shuttlecraft series, and this is going to be part 4. And we are going to be covering the Voyager episode, Good Shepherd. I know it's one of my favorite episodes because I put it in the watch list, but newsflash, I have no idea what it's about, so I can't wait to see why I like it.
Okay, so I am listening to the Delta Flyers, and that is the podcast with Garrett and Robbie. They just covered it this week.
Wow, that's a coincidence.
I know, right? Yeah.
Excellent. So do you know what it's about?
Well, I tend to listen and then fall asleep, so.
Wow, that must be a very exciting podcast.
I mean, it's no All Good Things.
No, it's true. That's true. We will cover it better, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll give Garrett some tips on the cruise in a couple of weeks of how to do a great podcast.
Yeah, we will.
Kelvin, you don't know what this episode's about either?
Yeah, of course I do.
What is it about?
This is an episode where Captain Janeway recognizes some junior officers who are a little bit demotivated or have some issues, and she spots in their service record that they've never been on an away mission. So she decides to motivate the troops by going back to the front line and taking them all on an adventure on the Delta Flyer, and chaos ensues.
Yes, I do remember them talking about that.
Oh, neat. This should be fun.
Yeah.
It's great. It's a great episode. I will actually say that. It's a very good late in the run season 6 episode. So everything's fully established, except for these 4 officers who we've never seen in 6 years.
Well, listeners, we would love to hear what you thought of today's episode and hope you'll join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, to continue our discussion there. You can also tweet your thoughts at AllGoodPod. Please follow the network on Twitter and Instagram at BQN Podcast. We've also partnered with our friends at the Fandom Podcast Network, where you can find us by searching their master feed. So, Mark, where can people find you when you are admiring Porthos and Murphy's big ears?
Oh my goodness, I could spend so much doing that. They're both so cute, although Murphy's cuter. Uh, so when I'm not doing that, you can find me on the BQN Collective Facebook page. You can also find me on Twitter at MarkWhite207. And if you become a patron of the network on Patreon, you can listen to my show, It's Green. So, yeah. And Kelvin, where can people find you when you are not studying up on all of the rules of acquisition?
When I'm not doing that, you can also find me on Facebook in the BQN Collective Facebook group, or you can approach me directly on Twitter and or Instagram at Kelvin's Timeline. And Amy, when you're not being a submissive female offering marks for freedom, where can people find you?
Oh my gosh. Hey, listen, you can find me here on the network where I'm co-hosting Galaxy Class and Union Federation. I am also on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, but my favorite place right there in our Facebook group, the BQN Collective.
Please hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a star rating and written review. That helps others to find the show. You can also follow the entire network's podcasts with our master feed by searching BQN. That way, you won't miss any of our fine shows like Union Federation, Galaxy Class, History with the Szilagys, Infinite Diversity, Mickey's Marvels, Sasquatch, What's the T-Bev, and Trexperts Quiz.
At this time, we would like to thank our associate producers, Mahendran Radhakrishnan and Tim Cooper. A special thanks to Graham Kelly for our opening and closing music, and Mark White for our artwork each and every week.
Well, Kelvin, I just want to point out that I do think you have the lobes for podcasting. So just throwing that out there.
Thank you.
If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. We will add you to the Hive Mind Facebook group so you can enjoy It's Green, Amy's Math Moments, and other network perks. With a monthly subscription of $5 or more, you can join the meetings of the Hive Mind Roundtable discussions on the second Saturday of each month. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details and watch your messages.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you'll join us as we search out
All good things.